Welcome to Community Church Unitarian Universalist. I'm your worship associate, Michelle Firestone, and it's a joy to be with you this morning. Community Church is a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Please look to your weekly email for announcements. I have a few other announcements this morning. Next Sunday, March 30th, we will have a very brief congregational meeting right after the service. I mean, really brief. We have to elect 2 members to the nominating committee, and basically we have 2 people running for re-election who are already on the committee, and that's Jolie Bonk and Liz Trotter. Also next Sunday, this is from Scott Dara, there will be a cookout for Bastion Disabled Veterans Community at 2 o'clock, so that's soon after the service next week. Help is needed to serve meals to the residents. Bastion is a community of mostly disabled veterans in a regular apartment setting where they can live with their families. They also ask if you come that you either bring a side dish, a dessert, or a beverage. And if you would like to sign up or get more information, you can either email Scott Dara at smdarrah, D-A-R-R-A-H, at outlook.com, or if you don't get that, you can email me or text me if you have my regular email, or you can email me at my church email, which is president@ccuunola.org. So people are just needed, a few people are needed to serve meals to the residents of Bastion. And then finally, after the service today, Gary Lloyd, who is right over here, a certified electric coach, will give a short presentation called Why Electrify and Steps You Can Take. Learn about how you can help save the environment and reduce your bills. There will be information not only for people who have gas in their home, but also for people who already have all electric homes. And I would just like to add, sorry, I can't get this right. I would just like to add, if you are in Orleans Parish and you have gas, I don't know if everybody knows this, but Entergy New Orleans very quietly sold off their gas division late last year or early this year to a private equity firm, which likely means that your gas bills are going to go up, up, up. So I think you really want to stay and see what Gary has to talk about. We are very happy to welcome back into our pulpit this morning, Abel Thompson. Abel is a native of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. He credits his home church, Unitarian Church of Baton Rouge, as having played a major role in his faith formation, as one integrated with ideals of social justice. Since 2020, Abel feels fortunate to have the opportunity to put his faith to practice, working with a diversity of faith-based communities as an organizer for Together New Orleans and now Together Baton Rouge. Welcome to Abel. Oh, sorry, I've lost my opening words here. Okay, well, I've lost my opening words. Let's just move on to the chalice lighting. Please join us in the words printed in your order of service. This is not in the order of service, but this is the time for all ages. Looks like all ages are over 18 today, but that's fine. This is Wings to Fins, A Flight from Cruelty, A Dive into Peace by Denise Morgan. When I was a terrorized, tortured, petrified child, I would look up into the vast, clear, blue, empty space and wish I were a bird. To spread my wings, rise beyond reach, dip through clouds like whispers, ride the blustery winds, and after the rain, chase the ribbons of color that arc across the sky, just out of curiosity. By night, I would perch on treetops unknown, watching the silver moon grin as stars winked their silent promises. Now, as an adult, I wish I were a fish. Not to witness the wicked antics of madmen, not to hear the echoes of cruelty. I would swim deep where the sea cradles its secrets among coral cathedrals through forests of drifting light. I would not need gills. I would not need breath. I would hold it until men learned to be kind. And at night, I would rest on the ocean bed, where even the waves whisper softly, where silence is sacred, where the world above cannot follow. And now let's sing the children of the world out.
If there is no struggle, there is no progress, by Frederick Douglass, given August 3rd, 1857. Let me give you a word of the philosophy of reform. The whole history of the project of human liberty shows that all concessions yet made to our august claims have been born of earnest struggle. The conflict has been exciting, agitating, all-absorbing, and for the time being, putting all other tumults to silence. It must do this, or it does nothing. If there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and yet depreciate application are men who want crops without plowing up the ground. They want rain without thunder and lightning. They want the ocean without the roar of its many waters. This struggle may be a moral one, or it may be a physical one. And it may be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has, and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows, or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress. In the light of these ideas, Negroes will be hunted at the North and held and flogged at the South, so long as they submit to those devilish outrages and make no resistance, either moral or physical. People may not get what they pay for in this world, but they most certainly pay for all they get. If we never get free from the oppressions and wrongs heaped upon us, we must pay for their removal. We must do this by labor, by suffering, by sacrifice, and if needs be, by our lives and the lives of others.
Now is our sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you're online, you may write your joys and sorrows in the comments section to be read aloud. In person, you may write them on one of the cards being passed around. Please remain seated as we sing hymn number 104, When Israel Was in Egypt's Land. From Jim, a sorrow for all our members whose illness prevents them from being with us. A joy to be at a place of worship with loving humans. A sorrow. A sorrow that the world hates me simply because I am trans. A joy being with like-minded humans. A sorrow, sad for those who hide the truth. From Kathy, a joy that the astronauts who were unexpectedly at the space station for 9 months are finally back on Earth.
May I give my introduction, please?
Yes.
So, I'm Bob Ellerson, and
Bob, come up to the mic.
Okay.
So,
Good seeing you all. I'm Bob Ellerson, and this is Joy and Sorrow. The joy part is I've been in this choir for 3 months, and everyone in the choir has been so kind to me. And thank you, Nicholas. And my sorrow is I'll be away back in Massachusetts, where my other home is, for 9 months. And I look forward to seeing you all in January next year. Thank you all.
We light 2 more candles, one for the joys still bubbling up, too new to share, and one for the sorrows that we cannot yet put into words. Know that we hold you in our hearts. Our second reading is entitled Liberation is a Process by Emily Towns. Liberation and freedom are not the same. Liberation is a process. Freedom is a temporary state of being. It is more of an event we point toward, work for, and hope for. It is the hope of freedom that drives liberation. Liberation is the product of freedom. Liberation is the process of struggle with ourselves and with each other that begets the transformation of all of us to our full humanity. Through liberation, freedom may be made manifest, but that freedom is not a permanent state of being. When we are made whole, we are asked to give of that wholeness. Liberation is dynamic. It never ends.
Exodus chapter 2, verses 23 through 25. During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out, and their cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. This was the first step in the Israelites' journey to liberation, what theologian Walter Brueggemann calls the public processing of private pain. The first time that the enslaved Israelites took agency over their freedom by reminding God of the covenant that he made with their forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, I'm not sure what God was doing up there or how he forgot that they were his people. I mean, they had only been enslaved for 430 years at this point. But anyway, he jumped up from whatever he was doing and went down to earth to find Moses, who had fled Egypt after killing two Egyptian taskmasters who he caught assaulting a Hebrew slave. Well, let me back up. Moses was born to a Hebrew mother, but raised as an Egyptian. Out of fear that the Israelites would grow in numbers and threaten his power, Pharaoh made a law that every Hebrew boy was to be killed at birth. But Moses' mother defied Pharaoh's law by wrapping him up in a basket and sending him down the Nile, where he was found and adopted by Pharaoh's wife. Moses grew into a man in Pharaoh's house until that fateful day when he killed the two Egyptian taskmasters. Although he knew nothing of his lineage, when he spotted the Hebrew slave being beaten, he was overcome with a feeling of kinship and filled with an uncontrollable and inexplicable rage toward the injustice he was witnessing. So I guess God, who had a propensity for violence himself, was like, that's my guy, and came down in the form of a burning bush and confirmed Moses' hunch that he was indeed an Israelite and that he was to go back to Egypt and lead his people out of slavery. When he heard that, Moses was like, hold on. I can't go back there. Pharaoh wants me dead. And God assured him that the old Pharaoh was dead, but Moses still objected to being the chosen one. And God said, Moses, stop being scared and go tell the Pharaoh to let your people go, or else the one true God is going to kill his firstborn son. And Moses was like, man, look, this is weird. I just met you. I just found out I was your people. Besides, I'm just one man and I have a stutter. God said, fool, didn't you hear me? I'm the one true God. I guess showing up as a burning bush isn't enough to prove that I can do things. So throw your staff on the ground and watch what happens. Moses threw his staff on the ground and God turned it into a snake. See, I told you, I'm God, I got powers. Now go get your brother Aaron, he can speak for you, and you just let me work my magic through you, and Pharaoh will let your people go. Eventually. Moses was like, hold on. Eventually? What do you mean, eventually? Chapter 4, verse 21. The Lord said to Moses, when you return to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders I have given you the power to do. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let your people go. I will harden his heart so that he will not let his people go. Harden his heart. Why would God feel the need to harden Pharaoh's heart? He just told Moses that all he had to do was a little snake staff trick, and Pharaoh let his people go. What was God trying to prove? That he could perform a bunch of miracles so that everybody would know that he was the almighty one true God? I mean, that's pretty petty for an all-knowing, all-powerful creator of the universe. But that's what he did. God hardened Pharaoh's heart again and again, even after God performed the plagues of famine and the plagues of locusts and the plagues of hail and the plagues of frogs and the blood in the Nile, and after he kept his promise and killed the Egyptian's firstborn son, the Pharaoh's firstborn son, God hardened Pharaoh's heart each time so he would not let the people go. Eventually, Pharaoh's own people were like, come on, man, just let the people go. We're going to lose everything. And Pharaoh's like, man, I'm trying. But this God won't stop hardening my heart. Eventually, after God killed his first son, Pharaoh let the people go. But guess what God did again? Hardened his heart. So Pharaoh rounded up all his men, and just when Moses and the Israelites thought they had got away, here comes Pharaoh. Now the Israelites are starting to get mad when they see Pharaoh coming for them, and they start groaning and moaning to Moses, saying, man, you and this God that took us through all these plagues, now you guys out here in the middle of the desert, and Pharaoh's on our tail. We should have just stayed enslaved for all this. Then Moses complains to God, and God's like, damn, Moses, after all this, y'all still don't trust me? Tell your people to keep it pushing and let me do my thing. Now, by the way, this is going to be kind of the theme for the next 3 books of the Torah. The people complain to Moses, Moses complains to God, and God tells Moses to tell his people to chill out. So they keep running until they get to the Red Sea, and the people are like, now what are we supposed to do? How's your God going to get us out of this mess, huh, Moses? Moses is like, God, what are we doing, man? Pharaoh's army is getting closer. God said, what are you talking to me for? Tell your people to keep on moving and just raise your arms in the air. So Moses did what he was told and raised his arms. God parted the Red Sea, and his people were able to cross. Then God told him to keep his arms in the air until I tell you to drop them. And Moses said, but God, shut up. Do what I tell you. God let him get all the way into the seabed, then finally told Moses to drop his arms. The sea came back together and washed the Egyptians away. After the Israelites saw that, they're like, all right. I guess we can trust you and this God, well, at least for now. Like I said, this back and forth goes on for the next 3 books of the Torah. The people cry to Moses. Moses cries to God. God tells Moses, stop whining and lead his people. This goes on for 40 years. And in this time, Moses gave the law to the people, talked God out of killing everybody several times. And Moses eventually built relationships with trusted men and taught them how to administer the law so that the burden of leadership wasn't his to bear alone. And as the old generation died, they were replaced by a new generation who had no fear about what was ahead of them and no experience of Pharaoh in Egypt, only the traditions that celebrated their freedom from Pharaoh's bondage. And after 40 long years in the desert, they finally entered the promised land. Now, okay, that's all well and good, but I wouldn't be a good Unitarian if I didn't have some problems with this. What kind of God would do this to his people, his chosen people? of people who spent 430 years in slavery. I mean, at that point, hadn't they been through enough? If he cared so much for his people, why didn't he just pick them up out of Egypt and float them to the promised land, drop them down in the middle of it, and be done with it? Why did he harden Pharaoh's heart so he would not willingly let his people go? Why did he have them wandering around the desert for 40 years? Why did he punish them when they then lost faith? I mean, what did he have to prove? That he was God? It doesn't make sense. Unless the story wasn't about God proving that God is God, or even about God freeing the Israelites from slavery, but about the Israelites learning how to become a people and seeing themselves as a people worthy of freedom, a people worthy of liberation. This isn't something God could bestow upon them. That's something they had to figure out on their own if they're going to truly be a people. Now, if we place this in the contemporary context, labor rights were not given to the worker. They were fought for by the worker. Women's rights were not given to women. They were fought for by women. Freedom was not given to black folks. It was fought for by black folks. And it was through these fights, these struggles, that we became a people worthy of freedom, a people worthy of liberation. And I can imagine that after emancipation, just like the Israelites in the desert, the burden and uncertainty of freedom would have been terrifying for the newly freed but not quite yet citizens of this country. Just like I can imagine that the thought crossing the mind of our forefathers of this country, that maybe they made the wrong decision fighting for freedom from the British. Maybe this democracy thing is just too ambitious, it's too messy. Maybe we should just go back to being ruled by a king. And even today, we have, shall I say, some uncertain days ahead of us in this country. Many of our brothers and sisters in this country would rather just as soon shed the burden and responsibility of freedom and turn it all over to a strong man who promises to take us back, a strong man who says, why bother trying to reach the promised land? Turn back to a simpler time, turn back to a time when people knew their place and America was for Americans. Turn back. Why are you in the desert with these people? These people are not your people. You are not a people. I quote Ella Baker. She says, strong people don't need strong leaders. We are made strong through the people we are in a relationship with. And by reaching across dividing lines to widen our network of relationships, we are made stronger. We are made stronger by investing in the spaces that build strong communities and strong families. We are made stronger by finding joy in the challenges of living and learning and growing together, and by keeping an open heart that nobody can harden. We have yet to reach that mountaintop that King professed, and we may be wandering in the metaphorical desert, but I do not believe that our centuries of struggle have been in vain. And we are not turning around and going back. Remember what our history and our sacred texts teach us, that we are a people, and we are worthy of love, worthy of freedom, worthy of the holy, worthy of liberation. And with that, I say shalom, salam, ashe, amen. Peace, y'all.
Thank you, Abel. That was wonderful. Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online, by text, or in person this morning. See the information on the back of your order of service for online giving. Please remain seated for our offertory hymn number 320, "The Pen is Greater Than the Sword." Our closing words are by Robin Gray, Departure. As we prepare to depart, we give voice to these hopes. May we know ourselves bound in community, even when we are apart. May a passion for justice burn in our lives. May we carry the light of compassion in our hearts and in our every interaction. May we be whole in our devotion to truth and always carry the lamp of peace before us. Please stand as you're willing and able and join in singing our closing hymn, number 220, "Bring Out the Festal Bread," and remain standing for the chalice extinguishing.
people lift your head and look to the mountains. For there's a place to fall drops in the fountain. Bring out the best of bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout in the saints of fire, sing songs of freedom.
And now, please join in the words for extinguishing the chalice in your order of service. We extinguish the chalice here that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again. And you can either stay for Gary's presentation, which will be about 20 minutes, I believe, or you can go and have coffee and refreshments, or you can stay and then go have coffee and refreshments.